According to the CEO of Bugatti, there's only two places in the world that are able to repair a crashed Bugatti, and only special technicians that are able to actually disassemble the vehicle and take out the engine. Well, you're standing in the third place in the world, and we have a very special technician here with us.
Matt Armstrong breaks down in tears after both Bugatti and Ferrari CEOs step in at the same time. What really happened behind closed doors to push two of the most secretive and competitive luxury brands into making a rare joint move? That is where everything gets even more intense. And the reaction? Completely hard to ignore. This is not just about cars anymore. This is about power, reputation, and control in a world that does not forgive easily. Stay close, because the full story behind that announcement and what led to that emotional moment only gets more shocking from here. The shocking announcement that left Matt Armstrong in tears. When conversation turned toward the moment when Mate Rimac and Matt Armstrong indirectly stood on opposite sides of a single narrative, something unusual started to unfold. A brand like Bugatti rarely steps into public discussions about independent rebuilds, especially when a machine as rare as the Bugatti Chiron sits at the center. Silence has always been part of the mystique. So what changes when silence breaks? What forces a company known for control and precision to suddenly speak? Reports described a moment that felt bigger than a normal corporate statement. A chief executive stepping forward, openly distancing from a rebuild project, created tension immediately. Not anger, not outrage, but something colder. A clear line drawn. Support would not be given. That message alone carried weight. A Chiron represents engineering at a level where even small decisions involve years of research, testing, and guarded secrets. So what happens when an independent rebuild begins to challenge that controlled narrative? Questions start forming quickly. Matt Armstrong had already hinted at something massive. Words like huge and concerning were not thrown around casually. A warning directed toward Bugatti before releasing content added another layer of curiosity. Why issue a warning at all? Why not simply upload the video and let the internet react? That decision suggested awareness. Awareness that boundaries might be crossed. Awareness that certain details, once public, could not be taken back. Speculation naturally filled the gap. Some voices suggested hidden engineering shortcuts could be revealed. Others wondered about internal decisions never meant for public eyes. Hypercars operate in a space where perfection is expected, but perfection often comes with compromise behind closed doors. Could such compromises exist? And if such compromises existed, what would exposure mean for a brand built on precision and prestige? Then came the reaction from Bugatti leadership. Instead of legal pressure, instead of takedown notices, something far more unexpected emerged. A form of openness. A sense that resistance might only amplify attention. Observers described this shift as historic. For a company that guards information tightly, any level of transparency feels significant. What leads to that decision? Confidence in engineering, or acceptance that the narrative has already moved beyond control? The rebuild itself already carried weight long before any corporate response. A damaged Chiron is not just a broken car. A damaged Chiron represents millions in value, years of engineering, and a symbol of status reduced to fragments. Rebuilding such a machine requires more than mechanical skill. Knowledge gaps appear instantly. Access to parts becomes a challenge. Technical data remains limited, so when an independent creator steps into that space, curiosity becomes inevitable. Can such a rebuild truly match factory standards? Or does a different kind of result emerge? Armstrong documented every stage. That transparency created trust with an audience, but also raised stakes. Every bolt, every decision, every workaround became visible. That level of openness contrasts sharply with how hypercar manufacturers operate. Inside factories, processes remain controlled, documented, and rarely shared in full detail. Outside that environment, improvisation becomes part of the process, and improvisation introduces uncertainty. The emotional reaction that followed added another layer entirely. A creator known for confidence suddenly showing visible weight from the situation caught attention. Months of work, countless hours, and growing pressure from an entire industry converged into a single moment. What does such pressure feel like? Recognition from one of the most exclusive automotive brands in the world does not come lightly. Even without direct confrontation, acknowledgement alone carries impact. Longtime followers began describing the situation in stronger terms. Words like terrifying started appearing, not because of danger in a physical sense, but because of potential consequences. If a rebuild reveals something unexpected, what comes next? Does industry trust shift? Do other creators follow similar paths? Does transparency become more common, or does control tighten even further? Another question lingered quietly in the background. Why would a company choose openness instead of restriction? Traditional thinking suggests protecting brand image at all costs, but modern audiences respond differently. Attempts to silence often create more noise. By allowing the narrative to unfold publicly, Bugatti may have chosen a different strategy, a strategy based on confidence, or perhaps a strategy based on inevitability. Every detail surrounding the rebuild gained new meaning after that. Components were no longer just parts. Each piece became a clue. Each decision raised new questions. Was the rebuild matching original specifications? Were alternative methods being used? Could performance remain identical after such extensive damage? These questions turned a simple rebuild into something closer to an investigation. At the same time, the audience played a major role. Viewers were no longer passive. Conversations spread across forums, comment sections, and social media platforms. Opinions formed quickly. Some supported the rebuild as a display of skill and determination. Others questioned whether certain projects should remain within manufacturer control. That divide reflected a broader conversation about ownership and expertise. When someone buys a car, even a hypercar, where does control truly end? Another interesting angle came from the idea of access. Hypercar ownership often comes with strict guidelines. Servicing, repairs, and modifications are usually limited to authorized channels. That system ensures quality, but also limits independence. Armstrong's project challenged that structure directly. If a Chiron can be rebuilt outside official channels, what does that mean for future owners? Does control begin to shift slightly? Then there is the human element. Behind every machine sits effort, time, and emotion. Months of work cannot be separated from personal investment. When a project reaches global attention, that investment becomes even heavier. Every reaction feels amplified. Praise feels louder. Criticism feels sharper. And when a global brand enters the conversation, pressure reaches another level entirely. The phrase, "nothing left to hide," started circulating among observers. Whether fully accurate or not, that perception alone carried weight. Transparency, once introduced, becomes difficult to reverse. If audiences feel that a brand is open, expectations change. More questions follow. More curiosity builds. And once curiosity grows, silence becomes harder to maintain. At the center of everything remained the Chiron itself. A machine designed to represent the peak of automotive engineering suddenly became a symbol of something larger. Not just speed, not just luxury, but a meeting point between controlled perfection and independent exploration. That contrast created tension, but also fascination. And then comes the lingering question that continues to sit in the background. What exactly triggered such a strong response in the first place? Was it the scale of the rebuild? The level of detail revealed? Or something deeper that has not fully surfaced yet? Sometimes, the most interesting part of a situation is not what is shown, but what remains just out of reach. In moments like this, the automotive world feels less like a structured industry and more like an evolving conversation. Boundaries shift, expectations change, and every now and then, something unusual happens. Two powerful voices rise at the exact same moment, not to agree, not to clash outright, but to shape a story in real time, each pulling the narrative in a different direction. It creates tension, curiosity, and a sense that something bigger is unfolding behind the scenes. That is exactly where this story begins. Because when you look closely, this moment didn't just happen. It set the stage for a journey no one saw coming. Armstrong's rise wasn't ordinary, and every step changed the game. Stay with this till the very end, because it only gets more unexpected from here. Armstrong's journey from YouTuber to industry disruptor. A British creator built a reputation around one bold idea, taking cars that looked completely finished and bringing life back piece by piece. Interest grew slowly at first, then exploded once high-risk projects entered the picture. One project stood above the rest, a crashed Bugatti Chiron Pure Sport, one of only 60 ever made. A number that alone raises a question. Why attempt something so rare and so complicated? Ownership traced back to Alex Gonzalez, who bought the damaged machine from a Copart auction for about $1.90 million. That figure already sounded extreme for something not even drivable. Insurance had already paid out, leaving a broken shell with hidden problems. Then came the manufacturer response. Bugatti quoted close to $1.70 million for repairs, almost the same price as the auction purchase. Refusal followed, and that decision triggered something even more serious. No official parts would be sold. A blocked VIN. A car effectively locked out of its own identity. How does a rebuild even begin under that kind of restriction? Severe damage covered nearly every critical area. Airbags had deployed, carbon fiber sections showed cracks, and the transmission had taken a heavy hit. Carbon fiber alone creates a challenge. Unlike metal, repairs demand precision, patience, and knowledge of material behavior. One wrong move can weaken structural integrity. Then came the gearbox mount, a component designed to fail during impact. That failure protects the rest of the structure by redirecting force. Smart engineering, but a nightmare for rebuilding. Repair required specialist TG welding, heat control, alignment, and strength all needed to match original standards. Could a non-factory rebuild ever reach that level? Lack of official parts forced creative thinking. Improvised solutions started appearing. Rigid brake hose sections replaced damaged coolant overflow pipes that had been pinched. Not a typical fix, yet practical under the circumstances. That approach defined the entire project. Work continued without the safety net of manufacturer support. Every step raised another question. Would the final machine perform like the original, or would hidden compromises show up later? Underneath everything sat an engineering masterpiece, an 8-liter quad turbo W16 engine pushing around 1,500 horsepower. Numbers like that sound almost unreal. Power delivery, cooling, and stability all depend on perfect coordination. Any flaw could lead to failure. Rebuilding around such a system added pressure at every stage. Yet progress continued, piece by piece, with trial, error, and constant adjustment. Passion even showed in a permanent way. A Bugatti logo tattoo placed on skin, a symbol of commitment or obsession. Maybe both. Attention did not stop with one brand. Another project created a completely different type of challenge, a Ferrari 296 GTB. Unlike the Bugatti, this machine introduced hybrid complexity. Electrical systems now played a central role. A blocked hybrid battery controller module prevented the car from starting. No ignition, no response, just silence. Diagnosis became a puzzle. Where does a fault begin in a system combining combustion and electric power? Manufacturer response followed a familiar pattern. Ferrari refused service due to non-approved bodywork repairs. That stance placed limits on progress. Without factory support, options narrowed quickly. Second-hand panels went into place, custom body kits followed. A rear wing changed the appearance entirely. Visual transformation looked impressive, yet the core issue remained unresolved. Electrical systems continued to resist. Two possible paths stood ahead. One option involved sourcing a second-hand hybrid battery, a costly and uncertain move. Another option required convincing the manufacturer to reconsider a strict position. Neither path guaranteed success. Questions kept building. Would investment bring results, or would costs spiral without resolution? Another rebuild added more insight. A Ferrari 812 Superfast, a naturally aspirated V12 engine, introduced a different kind of appeal. Sound, power delivery, and mechanical simplicity compared to hybrid systems. Yet costs revealed another side of salvage work. High-performance parts carry high prices. Repairs can quickly approach or exceed purchase cost. Risk becomes part of every decision. How much investment makes sense before a project stops being practical? Growth of an audience followed these ambitious builds. Numbers reflected strong interest. A subscriber count reached over 6.5 million. Engagement rates held steady at just over 3%. Monthly views averaged more than 8 million, sometimes rising above 12 million. Income estimates ranged between $28,000 and $38,000 per month. Annual projections reached into hundreds of thousands. Financial success clearly tied to consistent attention. But what exactly kept people watching for such long durations? Video length offered one clue. Average runtime approached 50 minutes. That length allowed deeper exploration of each rebuild. Problems did not get skipped. Mistakes stayed visible. Solutions appeared gradually rather than instantly. That format created tension. Each episode raised new uncertainty. Would a part fit correctly? Would a repair hold under stress? Would the engine finally start after weeks of work? Background played a role in shaping this approach. Early content focused on BMX riding around 2013. That phase built comfort with filming and storytelling. A shift toward automotive content opened a new path. Mechanical knowledge came from a family influence. A father named Tony Armstrong introduced car repair skills from a young age. Hands-on learning replaced formal training. Skills developed through practice, mistakes, and repeated attempts. Admission of limited formal education added authenticity. Techniques often learned during the rebuild itself. That honesty created a different connection with an audience. Instead of presenting perfection, content showed learning in real time. Viewers saw problems appear without warning. Fixes did not always work on the first try. That unpredictability made each project feel real rather than staged. Setbacks formed a key part of each narrative. A stripped bolt, a failed weld, a missing component. Each moment added tension. Emotional reactions also became part of the process. Frustration, relief, excitement, all appeared naturally. That mix created something closer to a journey than a simple repair video. Could that be the real reason behind the strong following? Consistency also mattered. Regular uploads kept attention steady. Each project stretched across multiple episodes, encouraging continued interest. Cliffhangers often appeared at critical moments. An engine about to start, a major part about to arrive, a repair about to be tested. That structure kept curiosity alive. What happens next? That question alone can drive millions of views. Another factor involved risk. High-value cars brought high stakes. Mistakes carried serious consequences. A wrong decision could cost thousands or even millions. That level of risk added intensity. Watching a rebuild of an ordinary car might not create the same excitement, but a rare hypercar or a modern hybrid supercar changes everything. Stakes feel real. Creative problem-solving stood at the center of every project. Lack of access to official parts forced alternative thinking. Some solutions looked unconventional, yet served a purpose. That approach challenged traditional repair methods. Does a repair always need factory approval to work effectively? Or can practical engineering achieve similar results? Public reaction often split into two sides. Some admired the determination and skill involved. Others questioned the long-term reliability of such rebuilds. Both perspectives added to the conversation. Debate kept engagement high. Opinions varied, but attention remained constant. Financial success tied directly to this attention. Advertising revenue, sponsorship deals, and merchandise all contributed. Growth turned a passion into a business. Yet the core idea remained unchanged, taking something broken and bringing life back into existence. Future projects will likely follow a similar pattern. High risk, high reward, constant uncertainty. Each rebuild presents a new challenge. Each challenge raises new questions. Can limits be pushed even further? Can more complex systems be restored without factory support? One thing remains clear. Curiosity drives everything. Curiosity about how machines work. Curiosity about whether something considered finished can be saved. That curiosity connects with an audience on a deeper level, because at some point, almost everyone has stood still for a second, staring at something that felt completely broken, something that looked beyond repair, and quietly wondered if there was any way to bring it back to life. That same question began to echo much louder in a situation no one expected, drawing attention from some of the most powerful names in the automotive world. What happens when that simple question turns into a decision that could reshape an entire industry? Stay right here till the very end, because what unfolded next explains why Bugatti and Ferrari CEOs made this historic move. And it is not what anyone saw coming. Why Bugatti and Ferrari CEOs made this historic move. A closer look at the situation reveals a quiet clash between engineering reality and internet assumptions. And according to Mate Rimac, most of what circulates online about servicing a Bugatti Chiron simply does not hold up under scrutiny. Claims about easy fixes, quick part replacements, or modern shortcuts like 3D printing sound convenient, but engineering at that level does not work that way. Precision components inside a Chiron are not interchangeable like everyday car parts, and tolerances are so tight that even the smallest deviation can compromise safety. That raises a simple question. If a machine is designed to operate at the limits of physics, would shortcuts ever be acceptable? Explanation from Rimac made one point very clear. Repairs of this scale demand factory-level intervention, not because of brand exclusivity alone, but because of the sheer complexity involved. Every part inside that car interacts with another in ways that require exact calibration. And once a serious crash happens, the damage goes far beyond what the eye can see. A casual observer might notice broken panels or a misaligned body, but internal stress fractures, microscopic distortions, and compromised mounting points tell a much deeper story. Without factory tools and original specifications, how could any independent workshop confidently restore such a machine to full performance? Discussion around 3D printing often comes up in modern car repair conversations, but Rimac dismissed that idea entirely for this case. High-performance alloys used in hypercars undergo very specific manufacturing processes that cannot simply be replicated with off-the-shelf printing technology. Strength, flexibility, and heat resistance all depend on controlled conditions, and even slight inconsistencies can lead to catastrophic failure under extreme loads. A printed part might look identical, but would internal structure behave the same way at 250 miles per hour? That uncertainty alone explains why such solutions are not even considered. One of the most striking details involved the structural design of the Chiron itself. To properly address the damage, the car would essentially need to be split apart. That sounds dramatic at first, but such construction is intentional. The vehicle is built around a carbon fiber monocoque, a central structure that acts as both chassis and safety cell. When damage spreads into this core, surface-level repairs no longer suffice. Accessing internal sections requires a level of disassembly that feels extreme but is necessary to maintain structural integrity. Without such measures, any repair would only be cosmetic. What value would appearance hold if performance and safety were compromised beneath the surface? Further insight into the crash damage reveals just how advanced the engineering really is. The gearbox housing had shattered, which alone represents a significant issue given the immense forces involved in transmitting power from the engine. Beyond that, structural damage extended into the monocoque itself. This is not a part that can simply be swapped out like a panel or bracket. Repairing such damage requires specialized knowledge, materials, and procedures developed by the original manufacturer. Without those, any attempt becomes a gamble. A particularly fascinating element in the design is the gearbox mount. This component is intentionally engineered to fail under extreme stress. At first glance, that might sound counterintuitive. Why design a part to break? The reasoning lies in energy management. During a crash, forces must be redirected in a controlled way to protect the most critical areas of the car, including the passenger cell. By allowing certain parts to fail in a predictable manner, engineers can channel energy away from more vulnerable structures. It is a concept rooted in safety science, not weakness. When such a part breaks, it is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do. Repairing that mount created its own controversy. A replacement part carries an enormous cost, reflecting both the materials and the precision involved in its creation. Instead of replacing it outright, a specialist used Taiji welding to restore the component. Many observers questioned whether such a repair should even be possible. After all, how can a part designed to fail still function correctly after being welded back together? That question highlights the tension between engineering theory and practical craftsmanship. Skilled welding, when performed correctly, can restore structural integrity, but whether such a repair meets original specifications remains a point of debate. This situation also brings attention to a broader issue in the automotive world. Independent rebuilders like Armstrong have built reputations around bringing heavily damaged supercars back to life. That work attracts large audiences and demonstrates impressive skill, but manufacturers often view such projects with caution. Limited production vehicles represent not only engineering achievements, but also brand identity. When a car is rebuilt outside official channels, concerns arise about quality, safety, and long-term reliability. If something goes wrong later, who takes responsibility? To protect against such risks, manufacturers sometimes take strict measures. In this case, the vehicle identification number was effectively locked, preventing dealerships from supplying parts for the rebuild. This decision was not simply about control. From the manufacturer's perspective, ensuring that every repair meets exact standards is essential. Providing parts to unverified repairers could lead to improper installations, which in turn could damage the brand's reputation if failures occur. That raises another important question. Should access to parts be restricted in the name of safety? Or should skilled independent builders have more freedom? Legal considerations also play a role in situations like this. A recent case involving Ferrari and the Ferrari Testarossa trademark illustrates how far intellectual property rights can extend. The European Union General Court reinforced the idea that trademarks are not limited to active production lines. Rights can cover parts distribution, certification of authenticity, and even resale activities tied to classic models. This means manufacturers maintain significant control over how vehicles are maintained and represented in the market, even decades after production ends. Such legal frameworks strengthen the position of companies like Bugatti when it comes to controlling repairs and parts distribution. Protecting intellectual property is not just about logos or names. It extends into the physical components that define a vehicle. Allowing unrestricted reproduction or distribution of parts could dilute brand value and introduce inconsistencies in quality. At the same time, strict control can frustrate enthusiasts and independent specialists who possess the skills to carry out complex repairs. Finding a balance between protection and accessibility remains an ongoing challenge. Despite initial resistance, the situation did not end in a complete standoff. Rimac indicated openness to collaboration, suggesting that the damaged car could be transported to the factory in Molsheim, France, for proper evaluation and repair. This approach reflects a willingness to support the project rather than shut it down entirely. Over time, Bugatti eased restrictions, lifting the parts blacklist and adjusting repair estimates. Such a shift suggests recognition of the passion and expertise within the independent rebuilding community, even if strict standards still apply. This evolving stance raises an interesting point about the relationship between manufacturers and enthusiasts in the modern era. Social media and online platforms have given independent builders a global audience, turning what was once niche work into widely followed projects. That visibility can both help and complicate matters. On one hand, it showcases technical skill and inspires interest in engineering. On the other, it places brand reputation in the hands of individuals operating outside official oversight. How should companies respond in such an environment? In the end, the situation highlights a deeper truth about high-performance engineering. Every component, every design decision, and every repair method exists within a tightly controlled system where precision is everything. Assumptions about easy fixes or interchangeable parts quickly fall apart when confronted with the realities of advanced automotive design. At the same time, human ingenuity continues to push boundaries, finding ways to solve problems that once seemed impossible. That tension between strict engineering standards and creative problem-solving defines much of what makes this story compelling. On one side stands the manufacturer, focused on maintaining perfection and protecting a legacy. On the other stands the independent builder, driven by determination and skill to bring a damaged machine back to life. Somewhere in between all the noise, the arguments, and the rush to pick sides, something quieter started to take shape. A shared respect for the sheer complexity of the machine at the center of it all. Not just metal and motion, but years of engineering, precision, and human ambition layered into one creation. And maybe, just maybe, that is where the real conversation truly begins. Because once that realization sinks in, everything changes. Reactions start pouring in from every corner, and the stakes feel even higher than before. So stay locked in till the very end, because what happens next has the entire automotive world talking. The automotive world reacts to this unprecedented drama. Specialist insurers covering high-value vehicles typically require documentation proving repairs meet manufacturer standards. Without Bugatti certification, obtaining coverage for a restored Chiron becomes nearly impossible, potentially relegating it to static display or track-only use. Rowan Atkinson's McLaren F1, which he crashed twice, cost approximately £900,000 to repair after the second incident, taking 18 months and requiring McLaren's direct involvement. The car reportedly sold for £8 million subsequently, but crucially, McLaren supported the restoration. Comments on Armstrong's video reflected divided opinions. Some viewers encouraged him to proceed anyway, arguing that independent specialists could restore the Chiron to safe operating condition regardless of Bugatti's official position. Others suggested the project had become financially untenable, with repair costs potentially exceeding the vehicle's post-repair value even if Armstrong completed the work. An increasing number of otherwise functional cars will be sent to the salvage auction and then will hit the used market as rebuilt vehicles. The situation taps into a much bigger conversation, the growing momentum behind the right to repair. According to industry analysts, in the court of public opinion, the dynamics are very different. Each new episode sees Armstrong overcome another impossible challenge, and the narrative becomes increasingly clear. Passionate independent builder versus global manufacturer. The internet tends to pick a side quickly, and it almost always sides with the underdog. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.